There's this guy trying to give reasons as to why Asians shouldn't advocate for what's happening in LA. And I just want to say that he keeps saying we as if all Asians think the same.
Delighted to have you once more, amazing viewer. I am sharing this compilation as a continuation of the previous video I shared on the same Asian Americans speaking on the mass deportation. There's a French expression that says "qui ne dit mot consent." If you don't speak a word, it means that you agree with what is happening. So I am glad that they are speaking up, and you are free to have your opinion. But in this video, it is taking a different turn from what the previous video is about. I don't want to bring anything from the previous video here, but I would want you to interact with the video yourself, but also watch the full video before watching this one. Thank you so much for being here. Like the video for recommendation, and let's dive into this.
There's this guy trying to give reasons as to why Asians shouldn't advocate for what's happening in LA. And I just want to say that he keeps saying we as if all Asians think the same. All right, we aren't a monolith. All right, even I won't say we as if I represent all Asians. And another thing is, you can support your country without being blindly loyal to it. All right, you can push for it to be better, right? And then another thing he said is that Asians aren't dependent on undocumented labor. Well, I feel like that is just incorrect. If you go to a Chinatown, or if you go to Chinatown, K-Town, if you look at the staff, all right, most of the staff is undocumented, all right? Sometimes even the Asians themselves aren't even documented, all right?
See this? This is called a green card, and it was obtained legally following all the rules and immigration laws of the United States of America.
To all of the East Asian Americans who think that you are oh so different than all these Latino communities that are getting ripped apart by ICE and think that your pale skin is going to protect you somehow, you are being fucking delusional. Like, it's barely been one full lifetime since we've seen something very similar happen to our very own communities in this country. My great-grandparents' house was seized and taken from them by the US government, and they had to live in the sugarcane fields because the US government was detaining legal United States citizens. My great-grandparents were born and raised in the United States, and so were many of their peers, and yet our communities were getting torn apart, our shrines being destroyed by the government, and in the case of Oahu, Hawaii, where 5 generations of my family have been born and raised by now, the island was essentially turned into a militarized state. My great-grandparents never got their house back, and the land that their house used to be on is currently military housing. Which is why, as a Japanese American, I look at other East Asian Americans and I just don't understand how you cannot have just a small shred of empathy for these families that are getting ripped apart for no fucking reason. And like I said, my family has been here for 5 generations, and yet I am still scared for my young cousins who are going off to college soon, and they're going to be by themselves for the first time, and all of our aunties and grandparents are telling them, make sure you carry your passport around with you everywhere you go because you just don't know. Anyway, my point is that we have to have solidarity with each other because we are so much more similar than we are different. And for the love of God, please, if you're not going to do anything else, at least share resources. It takes like less than 10 seconds to hit repost.
Genuinely not sure where this talking point of Asians being white is coming from, but it's really harmful. Yellow Peril, the Chinese Exclusion Act, Japanese internment, the nukes dropped on Japan civilians, 635,000 tons of bombs dropped on Korea during the Korean War. They did not see us as white. They barely saw us as human. First of all, East Asians are not a monolith. There are so many Koreans that are several shades darker than the typical beauty standard pale Korean you may see. But they are not represented as much because of colorism. Second of all, East Asians and other Asians in America were not seen as white, and we were not treated as white. And to imply otherwise is incredibly ignorant and erases the history of violence and destruction of our communities in America. For an example, the LA Chinatown Massacre. The mob gathered after hearing that a policeman and a rancher had been killed as a result of a conflict between rival tongs. As news of their deaths spread across the city, fueling rumors that the Chinese community were killing whites wholesale, more men gathered around the boundaries of Negro Alley. And this is far from the only example of violence against Asians, especially in America. In Asia, European and American powers came into our nations, split our nations in half, split families, committed genocides. They did not see us as white. They barely saw us as human.
As an Asian American, I'm extremely disappointed to see the lack of Asian and Asian American creators speaking out about what's happening with ICE, the deportations, and especially in California. As someone that was born and raised and has lived in California my entire life, I have the extreme privilege and sense of safety that comes with being a natural born citizen. I'm also Chinese American, and my grandparents immigrated from their respective countries. On my Japanese side, my grandfather put a lot of time and effort and care into building his own business in Washington. When the internment camps started happening, all of his efforts to help support my family, to give them a happy, healthy, safe life, and to give them opportunities, all of those efforts were ultimately disregarded, disrespected, and dehumanized when he was sent to an internment camp. And after the internment camps, he was never given any of that back. He had to work again to build a safe life for my family. The internment camps are a proof of a concept where our Asian communities are not safe. And Trump actually has been targeting Asian communities for deportation, particularly Southeast Asian communities. As Asian Americans, we have a unique perspective on what's going on because our families and our communities have also faced brutalization, have been targeted, we've faced discrimination, we've faced racism, and we know what it's like to be denied opportunity just because of what we look like or where we or our families come from. And if you're like me and you have the privilege to be a natural born citizen, I strongly urge you to use your empathy, your perspective, your experiences in your family, to use your voice to find out how you can support your local communities and keep your eyes and ears open to what's going on. Watch the news, share resources, understand and educate yourself on what to do if you witness an ICE deportation, if ICE ever comes to your house hoping to deport you or one of your family members, and to not fall victim to bystander effect or letting yourself not say anything because it's the easier thing to do. I hope that this can be a wake-up call for my fellow Asian Americans that you cannot be complicit in what's going on right now. What's happening is it, even if it's not affecting your direct immediate family, is going to affect your community and is affecting your local communities. I'm not even a content creator. I'm not even a small one. I barely even make content. And I know it can be easy to get worried about saying the right thing, doing the right thing, showing up in the right way. But at this point, all that matters is that you're using your voice in some way and raising awareness about what's going on. This is not a political or legal issue. This is a human issue.
I don't know who this is going to reach, but if you're Asian or Asian American living in America through these times and you're not fazed or you're choosing to be uninvolved, let me tell you why you should care. First of all, the US did have concentration camps for Asian people at some point, and I'm realizing that that is not common knowledge. And there's a reason, probably, why it's not common knowledge. My point is, though, you can't put it past them. Second of all, I don't like saying this because it feels very transactional, but I'm going to say it anyways. If we keep going the way we are, they will inevitably start mass detaining and deporting Asian people. And there will literally be no one left to stand up for us. And finally, the day that that does happen will probably be the scariest day of our lives. Don't let it also be the most regretful day of your life.
I'm a first-generation Chinese American born in LA, so the current situation is very disheartening. I am by no means the most educated on this issue, nor am I the most articulate, and I have been very apprehensive speaking up about it because I feel like a lot of social media activism is very performative. But I have been given a platform that has changed my life, so I want to try my best to relate why these people feel this type of way, coming from somebody who understands. My parents came here in 2002, and because of their sacrifice and courage, I'm able to grow up in a place where I can be anything I want to be. I can be whoever I want, whatever I want, and the only limitations on me are my ambitions. The process to get here is very difficult and very strenuous, and my parents got very lucky. In fact, I don't really have many family because all of my family are still in China. The only people I have in my life are my immediate family. They want to come to this country so bad because this is truly where opportunity exists.
My friends often told me, Alyssa, you're so Americanized. You act like a Valley girl. For me, this is definitely not a compliment. But I guess I have to admit that I used to have an American dream. To admit it as a Chinese is hard, it's difficult, and sometimes it feels like betrayal. You don't want people to find out. You try so hard to hide it. But I was already in love with America way before I knowing what American was, knowing the concept of a country. I just wanted to have 104 days summer vacation with Phineas and Ferb. I want to go to Disneyland every other month. I want to talk to Barbie, talk to Disney princesses. I want to send my drawing to Neo for an art attack. America wasn't just a country to me. It's a feeling. It's a possibility. It raised me in some way.
Now, I understand the disdain towards those who have protested violently and with destruction. However, I think the media has done a very unfair job of presenting the situation. It is unjust and it is painting it in a negative light. I live in LA. It is fine. It is not a war zone. The only thing keeping me up at night are the police sirens and the helicopters floating above. And if you only highlight the negative, there is no good that can shine. I can do the same exact thing the media is doing with the police. I could talk about the police officer who purposely harmed the reporter who was just trying to report on what was going on in the area. I could talk about the LAPD unfairly assaulting people just because they can. That is unfair and not holistic, and it would also be hypocritical of me as I disdain media outlets that hold a propagandist narrative towards immigrants. I grew up with primarily Mexican Americans my entire life. And I know this may be anecdotal, but these people, all they are compassionate, kind, and hardworking. They hold family to the utmost of importance, and they do labor that most are not willing to do. They endure so much because that's how committed they are to having a great life, and they actually contribute to the economy as opposed to the elites who just constantly exploit it. Immigration policy is a whole other topic for discussion. However, these people need to be treated fairly and not attacked. I love the US and I love being American because I can be whoever I want to be here and there is no limit to my opportunity. Let these people have that same chance as well and stop ripping them away unfairly from their families and their lives they have created here. Hope everyone in LA stays safe, and I'm sorry it took me so long to speak up on this because I also wanted to write down all of my thoughts. I have my script there. I just didn't want to miss a beat, but I hope everyone is safe and sound in this situation calm.
But the American I see today isn't the American I dreamed of. It's angry, it's paranoid, it's building walls instead of bridges. Like, if you hop off the plane at LAX right now, you'll see ICE is breaking into immigrants' households, detaining families, arresting people from their children's graduations, holding them without food. Like, what happened to the land of dreams, to the land of freedom? I know, projecting your dreams onto a country. It's naive, it's toxic. But still, it hurts. Even though I'm Chinese, even though the world paints us as enemies, I never wanted to see America collapse like this. I feel so sorry for the immigrants, for people who came to this country hoping for something better and gave everything to this country. You deserve way better. You deserve safety. You deserve a life filled with dignity. I wish everything would be better. I hope they'll be. But for me, this dream walked away.
You seem so happy, relaxed, and yet you're dreaming of a Disney movie that is fictional, Gail. The grass is not always green on the other side. I hate to tell you that the comment that I've interacted with on this platform the most from Americans, it's always like, America is no longer what it used to be. It's not safe over here. Stay in your country. I love you, but stay in your country. So, yeah. That's what it is.
It actually makes me so happy right now that people are like, unfollow your favorite influencers if they haven't spoken out about what's happening in the world. Not because I care if these influencers speak out, but because the people who follow them are the majority of the world probably, or the majority of the US. And they probably have those same opinions as those influencers. And right now it is the status quo to not speak out and to be okay with siding with the oppressor. When that status quo changes, those people who follow those influencers, they will be made to feel very uncomfortable, as they should be. And then they'll be made to reflect and maybe change their opinions and have conversations with people who don't have the same opinions as they do. And popular opinions will shift in the US. Because right now people, like mainstream, I guess liberal people are still being like, they're like, immigrants are the hardest working people, and like, obviously, if you're a criminal, you shouldn't be allowed in the US. Like, having to use these statements as a preface for the fact that people in this country shouldn't be put in cages, shouldn't be kidnapped off the streets by people wearing masks who are unidentifiable, and who are a part of an organization that operates outside the law. We shouldn't currently have to preface that this is wrong.
I live in Los Angeles, and in this video, I'm going to translate the Know Your Rights cards into Cantonese and Mandarin while ICE is raiding our city. These Know Your Rights cards are actually translated into 39 different languages, and I will put a link to them in my bio. First, I will do some explanation in Cantonese, then I will read the rights in Cantonese, and then I will read them in Mandarin. 如果你俾美國移民局嘅人員停咗，保持冷靜，唔好走。唔好俾佢哋任何假嘅文件。如果你係美國公民或者合法嘅移民，記得攜帶你嘅護照或者綠卡。如果你係冇身份嘅，記住你亦都有權利嘅。你可以記住呢4句。第一，我選擇行使我嘅憲法權利。第二，根據美國憲法第5條正案嘅權利，我唔想同你溝通。亦都唔會答你嘅問題或者簽任何嘅文件。第三，如果移民局嘅人員敲你個門，你唔使開門，你可以同佢講，根據美國憲法第4條正案嘅權利，我唔批准你入我屋企，除非你有法官或者裁判官簽咗嘅搜查令，搜查令上面必須寫我個名，你可以將搜查令攝入我門下。第四，根據美國憲法第4條正案嘅權利，我唔批准你搜查我所有嘅物品。Now I'm going to say this in Mandarin. 第一，我選擇行使我的憲法權利。第二，根據美國憲法第5修正案的權利，我不想和你說話，不想回答你的問題，我只簽署任何的文件。第三，根據美國憲法第4修正案的權利，我不允許你進入我的家，除非你有法官或裁判官簽署的搜查令，搜查令上寫着我的名字，你將搜查令在我門底塞進來。根據美國憲法第4條修正案的權利，我不允許你收查我的東西。Once again, I will link the translated Know Your Rights cards in my bio. Send this to a loved one that may need to hear this in Cantonese or Mandarin. No ICE in LA.
What the media is describing as anti-ICE protests is actually Americans defending themselves from a Gestapo that has no rules, no boundaries, and no checks. If we lose these battles for our own safety, then it's fucking over, guys. We are all essentially slaves. That is very much what is at stake in these things. Just because you are a nice white American out in the suburbs somewhere who drives around in a dually, don't think for a second that they're not going to come after you. They'll get to you. Trust me. This current American government exists for people with $10 million in the bank or more. Anyone who doesn't have that is surplus. And you can be poisoned, gassed, run over, shot, deported, and brutalized in any way their little goons think is fun. So remember, you're next.